So that's how powerful Alaska is. Do you know what I mean? Also, everything can kill you at any time. It's just fucking amazing. Everyone's drunk. Like I don't drink anymore. I smoke a lot of weed. And when I started going up there, I did drink, and woo, so do they. Like as
professionals.
And I was like also on their level at the time.
The intersection of good drinks, good music, and good times. This is Hops and Spirits Bar Conversations.
We've got another great episode for you this week. Yes, we kicked off 2023 talking about Puncher's Chance Bourbon and talking to the legendary Bruce Buffer. But we switched things up, and while we're not going back into music just yet for our conversation, we have comedian Billy Wayne Davis as he talks about his crazy life and his new special that is out now. And then for our tasting notes, we welcome in the guys from Old Line Spirits to talk about single malt whiskey, specifically American Single Malt Whiskey. So you learn a lot this week, and you can see a full interview with them talking about their distillery and everything on our Facebook and YouTube pages as well. And before we get to that, don't forget to check out our neat and mixed reviews, which are on all of our socials, and we give our honest opinion about the pours we try. But like I said, up next is our tasting notes with Old Line Spirits, learning about the American Single Malt Whiskey. Enjoy.
Did you know Hops and Spirits is more than just this podcast? Check out hopspirits.com for our latest episode release, past episodes, interviews with interesting folks in the alcohol industry, and so much more. Just go to hopspirits.com. Feel free to wait until this podcast is done.
Joining us here for tasting notes, you might be getting the short version on our bar conversations, or if you're lucky enough, go check out the full conversation, which is up on our YouTube and Facebook pages, because we have a cool chat here, and we're going to be talking about some American Single Malt Whiskey, but a cool brand as well. And we have with us one of the co-founders of that, of Old Line Spirits, is Mark McLaughlin. Welcome in.
Hey, thanks, Jonathan. Glad to be here.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time, because I think we're going to learn a lot today about not only a category that is kind of trying to get established here in America, but like I said, a cool backstory for what you guys have done there at Old Line. And I guess my first question, because I'm always curious about this, is what drew you to the world of whiskey?
I'll try not to go on too long. I tend to take tangents, so just keep the guardrails on me as I go. But no, I appreciate the A, being here, and B, the opening question. It's kind of a long time coming, as you'd imagine, for like you, I love whiskey. I drank when I was younger, drank more beer, but I always liked whiskey. And it was always around the house. I'm a Boston Irish kid, so there's always Irish whiskey around for family parties and all that. Jameson was everywhere, Powers. So I loved the kind of romanticism behind it. I remember my grandfather was a kid. He wasn't a big drinker, but he would have, he'd have a drink occasionally. He would talk about the process of how whiskey is made, and it was kind of this big mystery to me. But it was really, there's something about it, and the fact that it's got to age in the barrel and takes time and all this, labor of love until you finally get this, hopefully amazing thing at the end. That part has always been attractive to me. More immediately, but my path after, I left high school, went to college into the Navy, and I was a naval flight officer. Loved that. Got out, decided I wanted to go to business school and become an investment banker, and that really was not a good fit for me. So when I was trying to figure out, what about, what did I love about the Navy? And there's a lot of things. I love the Navy. It was a really hard choice to get out. And there are certain things about the Navy that I'll never be able to recreate anywhere else. But what are other things that I really love and want to engage that I can do in a different line of business? And one thing is, one thing that banking didn't give me was the ability to actually make something. Investment banking is very transactional by nature, it's just what it is. And I learned a lot. I worked with great people. I was very, very fortunate to have done it. But it was really just not something I enjoyed at all. So I had this itch to do something that was producing something instead of just doing these transactions. I already had this love of whiskey and the kind of romance behind it. And at the time when Arch and I started this, 2014, 2015, this whole craft whiskey market was really just getting on its feet, just starting to. And it kind of was like, hey, I don't like what I'm doing. This looks really cool. My wife's supportive of it, and the market's going the right way. Look, all right, let's go. So that's the long answer to your short question.
Well, and it also might be kind of unique in the sense of what you guys are producing, and that is that single malt, that American Single Malt Whiskey, which is a little different than what most are probably used to hearing, thinking about. So for those that are unfamiliar with that type of style that you guys are producing, what is that style?
And again, you keep hitting the nail on the head here with these comments, because you're right. The fact that we are doing something new and different it's a double-edged sword, right? It's an American Single Malt, and I'll explain it here in a moment to your listeners. But suffice it to say for right now that it's a brand new category. So one of the challenges there is that because it's so new, that what's driving people to the liquor store, for example, you're not going to the liquor store because you open your liquor cabinet and I'm all out of American Single Malt. You're out of rye or bourbon or beer or Truly or wine. That's the impetus for your trip to the store. And how do we as a brand and as a category become part of that experience? We don't want to knock anybody else out of the cart, but how do we join in on that experience? Like, you know what? I do need some American Single Malt. So that's the fact that people aren't, that was driving them to the point of sale in many cases is a different product or a different category. But the other side of that sword, the good side, is that it's a fragmented category. There's no like Jim Beam or Jack Daniel or Bullet equivalents in American Single Malt. As small as we are, we're probably one of the top 5 or 6 in size, and we're small. So that means there's a lot of opportunity that we can go in there and really establish our name, which I think we're doing amongst the top producers in the category. So that's, as a big picture, that's kind of the pros and cons at a high level. As far as what actually we are doing, again, I know you're familiar, but for your listeners who may not be, American Single Malt is a category that doesn't even really officially exist yet. So, all categories of whiskey in America, anything gets either made here or imported here, it's got to fit into some category. Bourbon has, certain things that define it. Rye, even Scotch, even though it's not made here, still has to fit certain definitions to be, called what it is. American Single Malt is such a new thing that we don't have that definition. So the definition that we, as a community of producers, have adhered to, kind of on our own free will, working together, is that we're making a whiskey that is made only with one grain, which is malted barley. Malted barley is a grain that you see more it's in beer, a lot of beers, and also in a lot of old world, think single malt Scotch, some malt whiskeys in Ireland, things like that. Barley is a very commonly used grain in the old world because it grows very good in the short growing seasons of England and Ireland and places like that. So we're making a whiskey with a grain that is traditionally used more in Europe than it is in America. And then in America, if we're making a bourbon or American rye whiskey or things like that, by law, the whiskey has to be aged in a virgin oak barrel, a barrel that never had anything else in it before. And that's because each time you use a barrel, some of the flavor gets pulled out, and it just gives you a different character each time until it's finally, after a while, eventually spent. In Scotland, people use barrels 2-3 times because that's just the nature of the way they make whiskey. And neither way is better than the other. They're just very, very different. So what I'm getting to is that in America, a bourbon or a rye has to be in virgin oak. In Scotland, a single malt Scotch is almost always in used oak. We have the ability to do either one as an American single malt. So what we do at Old Line is almost entirely virgin oak because we love that American style, vanilla, caramel, kind of baking spice character. But the beauty of it is that, if you're down the street making American single malt, you can do it completely differently. So we're taking this old world grain style of malted barley and applying, and basically removing some of the limits that a single malt Scotch producer would have. Single malt Scotch and bourbon and rye, all these categories I keep referencing, they're very heavily defined for good reason because they've been doing it for a long time, and they don't want some upstart to come in and make something and call it a bourbon, and it's really kind of wacky and weird, and it hurts the category. The beauty of American single malt is that we have no category to hurt yet, right? So we want more people to come in and start doing it. So we want to make it, keep it narrow enough where we maintain the integrity of what we're trying to do, but wide enough where people can come in and do it because we want more people doing it. Did that answer your question? I kind of tap danced a little bit there.
Yeah, because and it's interesting too that you mentioned it being a recognized category because folks might not always realize this. TTB is fun to deal with, especially when you don't have a necessarily category that fits you correctly. I remember talking with Mean Mule Distilling out of Kansas City. They were doing agave. tequila basically, but you can't call it tequila if you're making it in anywhere but that region. And they were like, what do we call this? And then they had to fight for to be called an agave spirit or an American agave spirit here, and they kind of set the trend. And it sounds a lot like there's several of you all that are doing that, and kind of I'm guessing that is the ultimate goal, is to get a category that is established that has those parameters.
And it's very close right now. I forget the names of different, like all the legal hurdles, but we have we're part of the American Single Malt Whiskey Commission, which was founded by, I'm sure I'm going to miss somebody, but Westland out of Seattle, Cole Keegan out of New Mexico, I think Few Spirits, and I know that I'm missing Conan. So I'm probably missing one or two founders. Those are the guys that started it, and then we came on a little after as we became part of this industry. And we're, one of the probably 70 or 80 members now. Those guys really started this process going, and we're on like the 1 yard line of being recognized. So I forget exactly what hurdle we just passed because it's some legal term that I don't know. But we're basically very, very close. If somebody called me tomorrow and said it's category, I wouldn't be shocked. I also wouldn't be shocked if it was 2 years from now, because who knows the speed at which the government works. But it'll be good. I mean, for us, it'll be good recognition, because I think that more and more people will know the category exists, but I think getting that official recognition will give us a little bit more of an oomph in PR.
And Mark, I appreciate you taking the time to share the story of Old Line, but also, talk a little bit about American Single Whiskey, because, like you said, it's a new thing that folks are hopefully learning more about.
Absolutely. I encourage everybody to try it. There's a lot of really good American single malt whiskeys out there, which is great, because we want people to love the category, not just Old Line. So lots of great ones out there. Please, if you're at the local bar, your bartender has some, give it a go. And I think you'll find something you really like.
Check out Hops and Spirits on social media at Hops Spirits, all one word, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also find Hops and Spirits on YouTube and at hopspirits.com.
Joining us here for our conversation, he's a comedian. He's got a new special out called Testify that is, like I said, now available. He's also he's a writer, podcast host. I think he just likes to talk. Please welcome in Billy Wayne Davis.
Hey, how are you? I'm well trained at talking, so that's why. It's not. And here's the thing, that is funny you say that, like, you like to talk, where it is like in my personal life I don't say a whole lot, which is kind of funny. I save it all where I'm like, yeah, and I just like get it all out, and then I'm like, I'm just gonna chill and hang out. Great.
Well, I was gonna say, do people go up to you and go like, hey, tell me a joke, and you're like, that's just not how this always works?
Yeah, I mean, that's when I think that, like an old, I don't even know if it's an old saying or just like it just happens, is like that's when you're like you're really a comedian, is like when you stop telling people what you do.
You're like, I don't want to have to explain or tell jokes.
No. Well, it's like, and also when I didn't notice this, but it was like, a musician pointed out, I was touring with some musicians, and after the show, we were hanging out, and they were smoking cigarettes. I was in the alley, and then, people kind of mosey back there and want to talk to everybody. And we did that for a couple of times, and then I, like, kind of disappeared, and then the keys player, Jeff, he was like, he noticed, he was like, oh, man, that sucks. I was like, what? And he's like, they still want you to do the thing. But they don't, they just want, we could say anything and they'll just talk to us. We don't have to do our thing. I was like, he's like, there's no pressure. They just want to talk to us. He's like, they still want you to do the thing you just did. And I was like, yes, they do. It is very strange. And it's not super strange, because it is like, when you're up there, you want it to seem like you're just talking.
Mm-hmm.
To a certain degree, where you're just like, kind of looks easy and just hanging out, and like, that's what I'm trying to do the whole time. And after about 20 years, I can do it. But it is like, on that show especially, on that tour especially, like, there were shows where it was like, I was using every bit of energy and everything I've ever learned to keep the crowd together. So then afterwards, I would just be like, okay, I'm going to watch them play. Thank God I'm done. But I'm like drained after like 30 minutes of doing this. And then you walk out and people are like, hey man, you were funny. And then you see them do the thing. You're like, I'm going to go back and sit in the room by myself because I can't give anybody anymore else. I'm so sorry. Can you feel a little bad because you're like, I want to be funny, but I just can't. Yeah. I mean, then some guys are just, it just oozes out of them all the time, which seems like it's a different type of problem, honestly.
Well, I can't wait to hear some of the stories that you get to share, and we'll talk a little bit about your comedy special. But this is called Bar Conversation, so I'm curious. I got a little, to tell you how much I have in my house, I randomly found this in my liquor cabinet, and I think I've had it for a little while. Little Starlight Distillery out of Indiana. You got anything good tonight?
I'm drinking coffee because I have. I'll be honest. I also, right before I went over to my grow shed, I grow cannabis, and I smoked some Wonder Brett Lemon OZ Kush. So that and like coffee and a nice sativa is a nice. That's how Daddy over here. That's how West Coast Daddy likes to take the edge off. If that makes any sense.
It does. It does. Now, you know, with what you do, being a comedian and kind of going on the road, I'm curious: is there a best place that you've gotten to visit, or some place that you've always enjoyed going back to?
I mean. Yeah, it's easy when I'm like, oh, there is like a ton of places I love to, like, there's so many places I love to go. I like to travel. I like to go back to places. I like to see new places. But the most special place is Alaska. I've been there 8. I think I'm going there, and you said this comes out mid-January, so I'm going there at the mid to end of January. So if you have Alaska listeners, like, just Google bwdtour.com right now, and you'll see. I'm in Alaska right now, so I'm coming around. Not all around, but more than most. I am doing more than most. That place it's really special. It makes you feel small in a way that nature can sometimes. Powerful nature. The people are very unique. You travel a lot, you start to realize a lot of places are very similar. A lot of places are. A lot of cultures start to kind of blend together, and then you find these little unique pockets where, like, this place is weird. And all of Alaska is like that. So it's, yeah. And then, in a sad way, I can argue really, like, when people are like climate change deniers, I can be like, no, it's happening. And they're like, oh, yeah, how do you know? I'm like, well, I've been to Alaska like 8 times, and I've, with my eyes, watched a glacier disappear. So when we were growing up, we were taught that that's not something we'll ever see, and I've seen it. So that's like one of those things, too, where you're like, hey. So that's how powerful Alaska is. Do you know what I mean? Also, everything can kill you at any time. It's just fucking amazing. Everyone's drunk. Like, I don't drink anymore. I smoke a lot of weed. And when I started going up there, I did drink. And, whoo, so do they. Like, as
professionals.
And I was, like, also on their level at the time. Because I was a traveling comedian with no kids or anything, like, you know what I mean? Like, I was in my 20s, first time when I went up there. And I was like
having fun after.
Woo! Like, it was also the first, like, the morning, I'll tell this story, since this is a drinking, this is a drinking podcast. So, the morning, I went up there, they used to do Tuesday through Sunday. You do one show a night, Chilkoot Charlie's. And that sounds like a Vegas thing, and it kind of is, because it feels like you're in this huge, Chilkoot Charlie's is this huge nonsense bar. There's like different versions. It's like a very special place. There's different bars inside the bar, And, like, literally, if you're doing drinking, it feels like you're bar hopping inside a bar, which is kind of rad. You know what I mean? Where you're just like, this is
pretty cool.
Like, and if you're drunk enough, like, and people didn't know, you're like, man, we went to a bunch of bars. Like, nah, we went to one, but we went to like 4 different areas. But they feel it's really neat. It's also disgusting, as you can imagine. It's just awesome. So they flew me. I was living in Seattle at the time. They flew me up, and it's 3.5 hours flight from Seattle. And you're like, that's far. The first time I was like, man, that is far. Like, Seattle's already far up here. Like, I live up here, and it's like, and then, so I was like, man, we're far away. So, I get there, I land at like 5:30, 6 o'clock on the Monday. They flew me up the night before, which I thought was weird. I was like, and they were like, nope. And so they checked me in this place, and then they're like, you want to go to the bar and see what it's about? I was like, sure. You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, I'm in. And then they just start feeding me booze because everyone's drinking. It's like Monday, but the bar's like, there's like people. And it's cold as hell.
Well, you got to stay warm somehow.
And I was just like, and then there's like, you go outside and smoke, and it is like kind of snowing. You're like, this is kind of awesome. And everyone's giving you shots. And there's a lot of adrenaline too, because you're in Alaska for the first time. So I'm just like, but I end up like blackout drinking, like, because they're giving me because everything's free, and it's like I was also not savvy enough to realize like, oh, they're abusing me is what's happening. You know, they know like I'm new, and I'm also like not turning it down, so that I think I'm kind of like an amusement to them too, where they're like, this one's not fighting us, so just keep giving it.
This one's lively.
Yeah, it was kind of like, yeah, no, there is like, and so you know, I don't remember. They were smart. They had cabs like just waiting outside, and I clocked that going in. You know what I mean? Where I was like, that'll be good to know, and they'll know where I'm staying. And so I walk out, and there's like video footage of just me just like walking out. Like, of course, just zombie, but like I'm not the only one, and I'm not even like nearly like noticeable. I'm just like you know what I mean? Just like a kind of. So, and then I just get in the cab, and I have them take me to Taco Bell, and I got mad at them because I thought Taco Bell was ripping me off because I had a drunk order that cost a certain amount. You guys know what I'm talking about, especially when you're drinking back in your drinking days. And it took a good minute and a half before they could explain. They're like, motherfucker, you're in Alaska. Everything, I was like, oh, there's no dollar. Oh, everything just costs more. So, you know, my $10 or $15 order was like $26 or something. And I was like, you guys are ripping me off. I don't like it. And they're like, and I'm just too hammered. And then I get back, and I wake up the next morning, kind of like, oh man, you don't want to get that drunk the first night before you do shows.
You're hurting.
But, well, like sure, like not even physical, like that. The physical part wasn't that never, you know. Sure, there were days where I was like, oh, this gotta stop for a couple of days. But it was the professional in me was like, oh, even for me, that was too much. I don't think that, like, I don't know how charming I'm going to have to, like, this is, whew. And then, so I'm just so apprehensive. It's a Tuesday, you know what I mean? Where I'm like, they're going to send me back on Wednesday. It's like, this sucks. I can't be in line. And, so I was like, you know, I laid real low all day. Some other stuff happened that I had to deal with back home, so that helped. But then it came time to go to the show, and I was like, oh, God. I got to go in the place where I was clearly do not remember leaving. Which is not good, because they got to pay me still, and they flew me up here. And then I walk in all apprehensive, and the bartender's like, "Hey!" And everybody's like waving, like I'm goddamn Norm from Cheers. And I was like, "Okay, that was nice. Everyone's nice here." I was like, maybe they're still here and still drunk from the night before. You know, who knows? And then I see this other bartender who had been feeding me stuff, and he was like, "Oh, man, where'd you go?" I was like, "Oh, I bounced." He's like, "No, we found it. We were like, we thought you might be dead because you didn't say goodbye or anything." I was like, "No, I just do that. Like, I come, like, I realize, like, it's like leave o'clock, and I have to go right then, or I might have to live here tonight." So it's like, that's how I, they were like, "Oh, yeah, no, we were, like, disappointed because, like, usually we have to, like, carry people out of here their first night, and you just, like, walked out, got a cab." They were like, and I was like, "Oh, man, all day I've been worried y'all were going to fire me, and you were, like, impressed by me. That is, I like it here. This is bad. I don't need to know about any, this is, yeah."
Oh, they should have saved that for the end of the week. That way you.
Oh, I mean, and don't think it got like the week. It's like up there, like drinking is like the Navy SEALs were like, it's the only easy day was yesterday. And what's that mean? You're like, it's not good. It's not good. But I'm going this. Yeah, I'll be there this month. But even sober, it's amazing. Like even sober, it's just as exciting. So that's the crazy part.
I can only imagine that. I've been out to the Rockies, and that's beautiful, and I know Alaska is even more cool. And you touched on this too at the beginning. You've opened up for some musicians. I know Sturgill Simpson, a Kentucky boy, was one of them. Is that weird opening up for a musician when you're there? People are there to see music, and you come out and you're just kind of doing your thing.
Yeah, I mean, some shows it can be. If they know who I am, it's not like a big deal, which now it's easier. Then, you know, and he was doing, that was like meta modern sounds too. So it was a lot of the country stuff. So with my name, there were some people confused for, you know, they're like, "Why ain't this motherfucker singing?" I'm like, "Oh." And then there's the normal, like, "Where's Sturgill?" Like, you know, like, which always, I had replies for that. I'm like, what in your head right now is going to happen? Like, you're going to yell, like, "Where's Sturgill?" And he's like, "Hey, man, that's cool. That guy was a dick to the guy I chose to open for me. So I'm going to go out and see what he wants." And you can see in the crowd that, like, his buddies being like, "Yeah, shut the fuck up, dude." And he's like, That did not go the way you planned. And then you do stuff like that, like, they start being like, "This guy's, like, funny." Do you know what I mean? Where they're like, this is, like, not like a, you know, kind of like a novelty or something. That was pretty fun to, like, get people on your side. And then the band really... And Stu and I hung out recently. We talked about this. Is he really loves... Because they don't get to say mean stuff. But you know what I mean? Where it's like they don't get to really like be like... They have to play and do their stuff. But people yell and heckle them too. Which is weird. And I never really thought about that until I toured with them. And I was like, yeah, that is... Like... It's usually like drunks, the same with comedians. It's like people that, for the most part, it's just like people that are like, "You're not on this planet anymore, so you shouldn't be in public." And they're just like, you're yelling at the person you love and came to see. That is so crazy. But then I get to tell them to shut the fuck up. And then musicians, that's so cathartic for them, I've learned. There's one show in... I'll just tell this story. Most of the tour went pretty great because Sturgill and I are like kind of very similar human beings, and we're doing similar things just in a different craft, if that makes sense. So like it hit most of the places, but we went to Salt Lake City, and there's this venue, and I'm going to get it wrong. I think it's called, like, the Complex or the... compound or some like, and it's this huge concrete building, huge. And then they've separated like 4 different venues into this huge. It's fucking huge. And I walked in, and I was like, before anything, I was like, oh man, this is gonna suck for me, like bad. And they never heard me say, like, most of the time I was like, okay, I know what to do here. This can be hard, or like, you know what I mean? Or like, this one's gonna rock. Like I knew. And I was just like, oh, and the sound guy's like, you need to do sound check? And I was like, it doesn't matter. Nothing matters. This is going to be a real nightmare. It's too big. It's too. And then he was like, I was like, why is this barricade down the middle? And he was like, and it was, I can't, it's insane. It's clearly they don't drink a lot in Utah, because that's what I had to, because later I came to that realization. I was like, oh, they're just not. I was like, why in the world? Because it was like, it was barricaded off in this angle where everyone that was drinking was in this other part that was like stage left. Not in this, like, where you had to, like, even go to the side to play to them. Everyone else, no drinking. And I was like, oh, what? No. And, then I shouldn't even do this. It's like, I was like joking. I was like, this is gonna, in a way. And they, by that point we were pretty deep into the tour. So most of the time they didn't come out to watch every show, because they realized, like, hey, you do this certain thing like we do. And like, yeah, I'll change up a little bit, but like, Yeah. This is what we're doing on this tour, buddy. And so, just right off, I lost my cool, like maybe 5 or 6 minutes in, where I was like, you shut up, and but I was like being mean to somebody, and they loved the crowd loved it, which made it worse, because I was like, oh, now I'm going to have to do this the whole time. So I did. Like, I was like ripping the whole, it was mean. And like, if there would have been like 1 billion people there, like at that Philly Bill Burr one, it would have been like, wow, like, but there just wasn't. But it was that. And like, I ended it with, most of you Salt Lake City are cool as hell, but there are 12 of you that I mean this, should kill yourselves. You should kill yourselves. And I was like, I did mean it. And you don't want to mean, I was mad. Because I was like, they wouldn't let me do what I was going to do, and it went way worse. I just thought it was going to be like, I was just going to bomb. I was going to do my thing. I was going to eat shit into just like an echo, and you can kind of hear the other concerts in the background going on. But it was just me just punching people for 20 minutes and them loving it. And you're like, I want to make me, let me stop. And then I turn, and every one of the band, everyone is on the stage, and their eyes, like side stage, their eyes are like huge, and they're like, this is the best set of the whole tour. And I was like, I'm going to fight every one of you. Best set of, that was like a fist fight. There was a verbal fist fight I was having with like thousands of people right there. And and he brought it up the other day. Like, we were hanging out. He's like, man, that Salt Lake City show. He's like, that's the funniest thing. And I was like, I was so angry, you guys. That was not fun. Like, that's the best. I was like, oh. He's like, people still ask it. Because he lived there for a while and worked on the railroad. He's like, some of our family friends and like they still ask. They're like, that dude. They're like, he was right about everything he said. I was like, oh, I wasn't wrong. I was just mad.
That wasn't what I was going for.
No, I wasn't making stuff up. I was just I've been here before. Here's what's wrong with your place. And they were all like, yeah, tell us more. And you're like, oh, you like to be abused. That's weird too, you guys. Yeah,
well, it still sounds like you had fun, and you've gotten to do a lot of other fun things, such as do a little work on the Squidbillies. You've gone on, Conan, a bunch of other shows. How much fun are things like that you get to do?
I mean, even Salt Lake City was fun, but like Conan was a dream. I wish he was still on. I'm working on a couple other late night sets, and they're great. You know what I mean? But it's not Conan. Conan was like,
yeah.
I realized I didn't try very hard to get on Letterman, and as I got old, like there was like a brief window where I think I was good enough, and right before he went away, that if I would have pushed hard enough, and you know, things fell in the right places. There was a shot at, but I didn't pursue that. And some of my friends did and got on, and I was always like, I wonder why. And then when I got Conan, it was like, oh, because that's my he's my Letterman, if that makes like. I love Letterman. Don't get me wrong; he's like way better than Leno. They're not even the same category. But Conan, he's my dude. He's my generation. And then like doing well, and then they were like, hey, whenever you have another set, just ask, you're always welcome here, which was like, wasn't even part of the dream part of it. Do you know what I mean? Where you're like, like you have it, like, this is how this is going to go. You can do your thing. It's going to go well. And then you're going to be like, hey. And then the producer came back afterwards. He was like, yeah, man, Conan loved it. And he's like, anytime, just let us know. We'll work it out. You're always welcome here. And I was like, oh my God. Oh. And so I was like working on another. I was like, I'll work on another one. And then they were like, we're not doing this show anymore. I was like, I mean, why would you? You know what I mean? You asked me and invite me back. It's like the Playboy Mansion. You get invited, and he's like, Hugh died. He died like 2 days after we invited you. Which is like, okay, all right.
Something.
There's an end of every era. Do you know what I mean? You just like, sometimes you come in and you're like, damn it, I'm in it. What are you gonna do?
Just a little too late. But now you've got, like I said, you got the new special out, Testify. It's available now. How much fun was that? How did it come about?
Woo! It was a dream. That one was a dream. It was a culmination of like several things. No one's asked me like that. That's a good question. I went and saw this church, the International Church of Cannabis, which is in Denver, Colorado. I was in Denver doing some 420 events, doing comedy and imbibing, because it's totally legal there, you know what I mean? And I respect the law, always have. And I was there doing some other events, and I didn't even know about this place, and somebody was like, hey, well, there's like a show at 420 at this church that's like a cannabis church. Do you want to do the set there? And I was like, yeah, man, everything you said was awesome. That is awesome. And I went, and like, it's got Steve, the guy that owns it, got this incredible Spanish artist to do this incredible mural on the inside that's just trippy as all hell. And it's just in this old looking normal church in the neighborhood. And I had a lot of fun during my set, and I was just sitting there. I was like, oh man, I would like to record something in here. Like a special. I even said something to him. I was like, I'd like to record a special in here one day. And he was like, yeah, that'd be great. And then later I trying to remember if it was before or after, but I had smoked DMT, and it kind of like changed my career in a really cool way, because like I dropped some of my ego about a lot of stuff, and it really opened up happiness to like performing and your career and what you're doing, and that's what I kind of put in the special, is like I wrapped it in this thing, and then it hit me one day. I was like, oh, I can do the trippy parts of the DMT story, which I've wanted to do in a special, and then I can do like a special, and like a comedy special in between it. We can wrap it together. And then director John Diaz, who's like a legit director, he's not just, some comedian. He's like, we put 3 cameras in like he's like, oh, I can do that. I know how to do all this stuff. And he like once you see the special, you understand. Like he made me get vulnerable in some ways that I wasn't super comfortable with as a comedian immediately, and then, but it turned out really dope, and this is just like a neat addition. Like I love the band, like the band. They're my favorite, and Levon's like he's the dopest. And he came to me he was like, so I think I want to put it together. He's like, have you ever seen The Last Waltz? And I was like, go on. I have seen that once or twice. He's like, you know how it does this, this, and this? And I was like, oh, yes. And I was like, oh, even bet, yes. This is like he didn't know that was. I was just like, he might not even still know. It was just like one of those where you're just like, you know, the universe is like, here's another cool thing. And you're like, yeah, I'll take it. Let him be inspired for the whole things. Let it come. Yeah. So that's how that kind of.
I enjoyed.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say. The special is absolutely hysterical.
Yeah, that part. I mean, that's just the stand-up part. I've been doing that for, like I said, almost not 20 years yet, but like that part was like fun. You know, when we were filming and stuff. Because that day was like kind of hectic, and we were doing some weird shots, and then I had to do some acting. You know what I mean? "Quote unquote" acting, and kind of be vulnerable about some stuff. So yeah, my dad was there, and he was like, man, you're really like enjoying the stand-up part. I was like, yeah, I was having fun because I'm good at that part. That was really fun.
Now I gotta ask, why the all-white outfit? Why the all-white outfit?
That you'll have to ask John, the director. He was like, what if you wear all white? And I was like, okay. And then he was like, well, he's like, because I want you. He had the vision part of the all white suit as the preacher whatever part. Once you guys see this, you'll understand. So then he noticed, you know, he kind of followed me for a little bit and watched. I'd send him sets and things like that. And he was like, oh, he's like, you just kind of wear jeans and like a t-shirt, like a blank t-shirt. And I was like, yeah, there's not. I'm most of the time we're in a goddamn basement, so it's like, you know, and I just look at me. I'm telling the story. I just need people are ADHD as hell these days. So the less distraction, the better. So like just simple clothes where it's like, okay, because it's hard to keep people's attention, even if they pay to be there to do it. It's still hard to keep it is interesting times.
Now, when you're telling these stories and you're doing your special, how true are these that you share? Because I mean, they're just funny in their own right if they're true. Because I mean, it's a great set.
That's all of that. All that's true, and I've just made it flow better, probably. I've nerfed some edges for sure to them. I've massaged some humanity back into some of it, and then, but all of it's like I don't make up the events or any of like those like big key things that happen. It's like I said in it, like it is how I process trauma. So like making fun of it kind of, and like, so it's intense and not made up. It is And there's like little lines, like I rewatched it the other day, because you get super involved in something, so it feels insane after a while if you're doing it right. That's how comedy works. It's like, oh, does it make you feel like an insane person and you're a little mad at the audience when they laugh? Yeah, then it's ready to go. Then you should film it. Until then, until you're not mad at people, it's not ready. No one does that anymore, but that is the way you should do it. But it is that there's like, I watched it again, kind of removed, and was like, there's like a couple lines where I'm like, hey, that is so real. Like that little line, I want people to understand, like that is how I felt. It's like a quick line, but it is like, whew. So I think, yeah, it's edited on point. Like there's no wasted words. That's kind of a pet peeve of mine as a comedian, is like the economy of words. So
don't waste any. But no, like when I was watching it, it literally took me back, because I lived in southern West Virginia for a little while, and I had an interesting landlord, and like literally my roommate and I are standing outside while he's trying to get someone to fix like a gas line into the house, and they bring up someone's name, and he just nonchalantly goes, "Oh yeah, I killed his brother." And my roommate and I just looked at each other and went, "Did we just hear what we heard?" Like, yep. Just nonchalant, he just flow with the conversation. The other guy didn't blink an eye, and I was like, "Oh my God, where am I living?"
Yeah, exactly. That is just how things are. It's how things are.
I have other stories on him too.
I bet. No, I have no doubt that's a character right there.
There are some good stories on him. Now, for you, I know you're going out on tour to kind of support the new special Testify. You're going to be in Alaska here at the end of the month. What can folks expect from you the rest of the year, or I guess all of 2023?
I mean, yeah, I'm coming to Atlanta and probably Louisville, maybe in June, July. So look out for that. And then I'm doing stories. I'm doing new stories. That's what I do. I enjoy telling long form stories with a bunch of jokes in them. That's kind of what I thought stand-up was. But ideally, in my head, that's what stand-up is. I know there's different types, and people are, it's a whole thing. But there's some amazing stand-up right now. I'm not knocking stand-up. There's just like music. There's a ton of garbage everywhere, and it's frustrating. Stop buying garbage, you guys, and stop making it. It's so simple.
So simple, but so hard.
It is. Yeah, every year I'm like, we're still not going to do it, are we? Okay. But no, it's just stories. I have fun. Like, the live shows are like, that's my favorite thing in the world, is doing live comedy. It's because you get to share this little moment in this room. It's like a hangout, where everyone is like, I'm going to make fun of stuff and maybe be wrong about some stuff, but probably not. And then tell you a story, and we're going to have a lot of fun, and then you'll leave. Like, I think that's the thing too, is like, I'm worried about all the crowd work videos that are fucking everywhere. Cause it's like, no, don't, shut the fuck up if you come to my show, and just, sit back, enjoy what I do. If you will go on the ride, and then let yourself go on the ride that I will take you on for 45 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes, depending on how cool you guys are and my mood. I'm being very honest on this podcast. I think it's a drinking podcast, so I just feel like, you can be honest. They're drunk.
Hey, that's what the conversations are about.
But it is like, I think that's where I get. Also, I'm very good at crowd work, so don't do it. I will make you rethink who you are as a person if you get me in the right mood.
It could be a Salt Lake City incident.
It could, where you're like, we need to change. Well, he's right. We need to work on ourselves. But it is that kind of just let me do what I do. I'm very good at it at this point. You'll leave and be like, fuck, that was awesome. He should be in theaters. And I'll be like, you're right. Go tell people next time I come through, I'll be in theaters. And then after that, you'll be like, he should be in arenas. And I'll be like, no, I'll just do the theater twice. I'm not going to do arenas. It's too much. But I should do theaters. I agree with that. But I have no interest in arenas. I don't know what I would do with it. But you say that, and then someone's like, do you know this is how much an arena is? And you're like, I could do one, I guess. Hawaii's awesome. Owning property.
I love it. I love it. And
I have friends that play arenas right now, and that's a weird, like, that's one of those where when we were starting out, it didn't occur to us that was like a thing that you could do. And I have I could text him right now and be like, he plays arenas, and I texted him. I was like, what the? He's like, I know, man. What are you gonna do? I was like, do it. That's what you're gonna do. Sorry.
I would just be weirded out if I was like in the middle. Even as a musician, if I had people around me and not have something behind me, I'd feel weird. The in the round stuff is very exposed. Is
strange to me too, because even there's some clubs where the stage goes out a little bit like a catwalk, and there are kind of people sitting a little bit behind you. And I was always like, "Who's this? Rude. This not like these people like." They just see my ass the whole show. Like it's just like a weird thing. But I have friends that there's like a theater in Phoenix that's in the round. And I don't know if they really love it, but they all say they love it, that it's awesome. I think it probably pays a little more than most because there's no, it's all the way around. So that's why they love it. But they say that, but it seems, I'm with you. It seems like a goddamn nightmare to me. Be like, the whole time I'm like, I'm sorry. For who's ever behind me right now, I'm so sorry. Yeah. It'd be like, honestly, it'd be like if I just like did the podcast like this.
Just people go home and be like, I saw the back of his head. He's got no ass. Wasn't great.
I hope one day that I play that theater in Phoenix and somebody's like, man, I heard you talking shit about this place. I'm like, I know, but they booked it, so I'd play it. That's how this works. That's how. I didn't like it, but the paycheck was awesome. Does that make you feel better?
Yes, it does.
Okay, good. All right, now you seem a genuine man, and you're like, okay, good. I'm conflicted. It's capitalism.
If you haven't, you need to watch this new special, Testify. It is wonderful. It'll make you laugh. BWDtour.com to find upcoming tour dates. And Billy, this was a blast. Thank you for sharing some good stories with me, man.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for listening to them. Guys, please watch, but not like Jeb, but like watch the special. It's like really good. It's like I'm very proud of it. It's like really funny, and then it'll make you want to listen to my other two albums, Billy Wynn Davis and Billy Wynn Davis Live at Third Man Records. They're both fantastic. They're little pictures of where I was at as a human being and in my career. So it's what art's supposed to be, I think. Watch it.
I think so too, and I agree. And thanks, Billy.
Hey, anytime. Holler at me when you need a guest again.
Find more from Hops and Spirits at hopspirits.com.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.